Amazing. Thank you for showing up today. I just realized that this is like a long hour class. So I hope you guys are all still fresh and have a little bit of energy, get some water. If you are able to turn on your camera, I would love to see your face if that's okay. Whoever that is in the space of sharing your face. Amazing. We've got like 84 people in the group. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. So we have an hour and a half together. Is that right, Jason?
Yes, that's right. Well, 1 and 20 minutes. 20
minutes. Good, yeah. Good. Yeah, so we're gonna kind of discuss like how we want to spend our time together, but hopefully that we have enough time to hear some of my stories and also some of my thoughts and the narratives and what I want to share. And hopefully we have enough questions. And also I want to guide this an hour and a 20-minute, not just me talking, but also you to come up with some of your thoughts. And then I have one question as well. So we will get into that. Hopefully that you can see my screen. Can you see it? Is that clear?
Yes.
Cool. Yeah, so when Jason first asked me to speak about community governance, you know, it's such a big word. And I looked at all the lectures and other lectures, how they do it. And then most lecture are kind of focused on the technology part, and then, you know, a lot of abstract, and then also a lot of like theoretical and then also practical stuff. And our conversation today will be still very much practical, but in a little bit slightly different way. And as Jason says, I'm kind of live and breathe the Web3 and then also blockchain and decentralization as much as I can in life. So it will be quite interesting conversation. And compared to other conversation, it might be a little bit more how can I say, experiential and then also experimental. So thank you for having me, and I'm really glad to be here. My name is Songyi Lee. So in Korean, it's Songyi. You can find me with my username. I am Songyi, Songyi.eth. And some of you might notice that that's kind of Discord name. So that's kind of how we identify ourselves in the Web3 space and no longer use our full name and somehow. And I'm a kind of bridge builder. And recently I started calling myself as an experienced designer or producer, and also cultural pollinator. Since I've been in the space for so long, I get to see a lot of different things. And then I also coming from Korea, born and raised here, and travel more than 45 countries, and then being nomad for last probably 12 years since I was in crypto. So I am in a very unique position to bridge a lot of different people and connection, and especially technology and ecology. And I am living in New Zealand actually, and now I'm in Korea, but spend a lot of time in the farm, in the forest, and kind of doing a lot of different experiments. How can we actually utilize Web3 or any of technology to preserve and conserve our human nature, and then also the nature coming from the planet and things like that. And also I bridge business and the movement. And a lot of we talking about in Web3 is actually the business, but in fact, it's all about movement, what we're doing. And then it's still a pretty much early stage of Web3, and a lot of our action and what you guys are learning, what you guys are building, it will be all become somewhat a movement. So we will touch a little bit of that today. And then also obviously connecting local and global. And since I'm spending a lot of time traveling, but also I have a very deep rooted network and then space in New Zealand and Korea. So that's how I kind of bridging this different themes. That's my introduction. My deep interest is actually working with the people that I love, and working on things that is matter for me and for the world, and then make enough resource to sustain our lifestyle. And that's why I'm doing a lot of work that I do. And I want everybody in this call and also beyond to be also living this way. So we are not like oh, I want to be the billionaire, but like let me have enough resource, which is including money, time, energy, and a lot of healthy relationship with myself and then to the society. And then that kind of contains a lot of different things. And I believe Web3 definitely facilitate that action and movement and enabling that type of living. So I'm really excited to share some of my story. As Jason says, the inception was actually I accidentally tumble into the crypto space. Back then, there were no words of crypto. When we say crypto, it's more like a cryptocurrency. And back then we were talking about blockchain and Bitcoin. It's a pre-Ethereum time. I was working at the NGO and they sent me to the West Africa, Mali, and I was visiting one of the refugee camps. They didn't have any way to send and receive money. So they have to put like money into the plastic bag and then give to somebody to go into that village of destination. And it felt quite ridiculous because we were already using mobile banking and everything was our own fingertip, but they didn't have any ID, any way to send, receive money, no banking, no Western Union, no MoneyGram, no smartphone, obviously no internet. So they were using this Sprix feature phone, we call it, to just communicate between each other and then to broader community. And I was exposed to Bitcoin and Satoshi's white paper in 2011. And when I was visiting West Africa 2012, already doing a little bit of mining and experimenting with the Bitcoin and what are the real use case is. And there were only use case for, oh yeah, you can buy drugs, you can buy weapon on the black market, which is not really a good use cases. And me and my partner come up with this idea of building Bitcoin SMS wallet. So what if we build this wallet that is working on the SMS network so people can send Bitcoin as easy as sending text message. It started with a little bit interesting thought experiment, and then we brought this to the hackathon, and then it became a thing. And quickly we launched this product in Germany, and we moved to Silicon Valley, and it become like a startup type of person. So that was kind of my inception of crypto. But back then I didn't know much about running businesses or even what is decentralization, and we were completely living in a beautiful country of Korea that don't need any decentralization, quote unquote, everything working not perfectly, but like pretty fairly. So I have like a question to you guys later, but anyway, so that was a thing. And then the journey started, and it wasn't just in my career journey, but also really inner journey of become more awareness about like a different power play and the understanding the different pillar of our society, and then like the market and economy and all of that kind of comes together. And I'm still learning. And then ever since I was in crypto for last 10 plus year and doing massive expansion by meeting different people, exposed to a lot of different theories and experiment technology. And because of nature of myself, I was really drawn to doing a lot more community building, which is including the governance design and then helping people communicating, really understand the culture building and DNA of decentralized organization. So I've been working on those part, and also being Korean, being woman, being connecting the impact and the tech, and a lot of like sitting in this overlapping space that I get to do a lot of advocating between the blockchain technology and then the impact and broader impact, not just like a technology impact, and bridging the mass and the niche market. So that's what I've been doing. Although it sounds like really something big, and I am still the drop in the ocean, but also the ocean in the drop. And I really invite everybody to think yourself, and you are oneself. You probably have, like, you feel like sometimes like I have no power to do anything, but you have everything you need in you as a drop in the ocean, and we are also ocean in the drop. So you have this vast community, and then your colleague, and then teachers and mentors and experts around you to actually help you navigate these things. So right now in my role is basically helping people like yourself and a lot of individual organizations realize their kind of like a potential challenges and opportunity, and make it better with a Web3 principle. It can be somewhat business, or some coordination issue, or some cultural piece. So there is a lot of different things that I'm working on. And the one thing I wanted to tell, especially to the student, is that I don't know how many of you guys are actually all technology based, or social science, or whatever. It's not, this Web3 is not just for technologists. There is a huge opportunity for everybody to play. So I really want you to keep in mind, and then really expand your boundary, and then see beyond what is given to you as oh, this is a tech. So today's conversation is going to be more about what is really the decentralization, and how can we you know, like expand my thoughts and the perspective, and then find the right footage that you can actually follow through. So now it's a 5:42, and I believe we have a time till 6:20 probably, or 6:40. Is that? So 1 hour.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, so this is like a picture that I took last week. I had a really beautiful gathering of Web3 players, especially in the DAO space, and bringing the DAOists from the East and the West together to discuss about like what are the new narrative that we want to build together, and more inclusive, like in society, when we talk about new ecosystem and the new technology and the new finance and all of that, that we need to have like a very much inclusive a conversation. So I wanted to touch upon a lot of those things, and also talking about decentralization, what it means. So I'm probably gonna speak about like 30 minutes, and then hopefully we can fill out another 30-minute Q&A, see how active you guys are. I probably have a lot to share, but I really want for you to speak and ask the question. Before you ask me a question, I have a question for you. Since you guys joining this class, some of you guys are new to Web3 and really learning about Web3 from this class, or you're already familiar with this and you're already participating in the ecosystem. But there is always still some of the question that hasn't answered yet. I'll give like a minute or two for you to really reflect your journey so far doing this Web3 learning and experiment. And I know a lot of you guys are building product and then pitching, are ready to be pitched. So when you see like decentralizations in our life, you know, I mentioned I am from Korea, centralization definitely work. I was just in Africa continent. I don't know how many of international students are here. If you are international students coming from emerging economy, please raise your hands so I can see, and or like type on the chat, like I'm from here and there, so I can have a little bit of data point. Where are you from? Great, yeah, one from Vietnam. Yeah, while you guys are typing, give you a little bit of background story. So I was just in Africa with Vitalik, the founder of Ethereum, and a few of Ethereum core ecosystem builder, to really understand what are the opportunity for Web3 and especially the Ethereum ecosystem to bring billions user, and so actually help them, or actually they help us to adopt more of our technology. And decentralization means really, really different in those contexts and emerging economy versus the developed economy. And I truly believe like how we think about decentralization is very, very different. So once already you are exposed to this decentralizations and Web3 and blockchain, I know it's a little bit philosophical, but I want you to think about what are the questions that hasn't been answered. And when you hear all this jargons and all this decentralization, DeFi, incentive, whatsoever words that you listen from the lecture, what are the simple or complicated question it hasn't answered deep inside of yourself? If there is any question, please feel free to type that in. I'll be playing like a really gentle music for a minute. Thank you so much for sharing some of your thoughts. There is a good questions, and I think we will have enough time to answer all of those. And then some are relative to what I prepare, and some are a little bit beyond, but I have to answer. And as my talk continue, still, if you have any question, feel free to put it on the chat so we can actually cover at the end of the session. Awesome. Thank you so much for putting your thoughts, Coolio. Yeah, so the next slides, I will be talking about, let me see, this way. Yeah. Because I supposed to be talking about governance and the community in Web3, I wanted to actually redefine a few things or just define a few things, and then also go through a little bit of history of what our society and finance and economy and system has changed. I know that a lot of you guys are heard of Web3 because it's a Web3 class. And I don't know how much of emphasis to understanding what actually Web3 means. So I know probably teachers or lecturers would have probably covered this, but simply speaking, Web 1 is basically very passive, and then Web 2 is, Web 1 is a passive, means like a one-way love. So we go in, open a website and open an email, and then that's it. There's no further interaction. And Web 2 is a little bit more interactive. So, people start having some platforms and the people getting incentive and people engaging with the platform itself, and they're getting something as well, but it's a little bit of ping pong, but still everything is owned by the platform, owned by the company, and then a few individual or a few organization. And Web3 is definitely a more proactive. It's not even just more proactive, it's like a proactive act of engaging with the whatever the entity and subject that is. And users are not just user, they are the owner, and also making the decisions of how we govern this structures and organization, and they get to have a say. And so we can say like Web 1 was a more like informational economy. So you just get information, and that was the only thing that kind of like connecting between you and then the platform or the service. And Web 2 has become a platform, and then Web 3 is token economy. And the token is not just way of giving money, but it's really because of token and because of the ability of creating new way of define what the value is, and then also developing the new way of exchanging that value, which equally money it was in the past, but now the token really enable a lot of different things that we do, and it comes with not just the financial upside or like a buying token in the exchange. It's a beyond that, and then it comes with finance, politics, and societal, and then cultural piece is kind of glue all together. And right now, I think the token economy is still in the very new, and we need a way more experiment, but that's a very, very interesting piece of the Web3. And then since we were dividing this, our web history of web, why not we divide the history of community and the governance? What are the governance 1, 2, 3 and the community 1, 2, 3? It has changed in a very similar topic, because when we talk about economy, we cannot actually completely divide, like, it's only community, it's only governance, it's only economy. It always comes together. So we have to actually expand our thinking a little bit today. But anyway, so Web3 isn't equal blockchain. The blockchain is one category of Web3, and it's definitely not equal. Like decentralized ledger technology, we call it DLT, is also part of Web3, not just a blockchain or not just crypto. So, Web3 is a one category of how we understand the history of web, and the blockchain technology is there as one of the character and one of the pillar, and that is really enabling a lot of different things, and especially the decision making and ownership in this particular context. Yeah, so when we look at those things, so community and then governance 1.0, it was pretty much centralized approach to the communication and decision making. Rarely, almost every community was based on the geo location. So, either Koreans, or either like nation by nation, village by village, work base, and also just mostly pretty much local base, and there is no online internet or metaverse whatsoever. So it was a really also limited communication channel, and oftentimes people just use their voice to communicate is in the physical kind of dimension, right? And then in terms of like business, it's been just community profit driven, and only few individuals are in charge, and there are no innovation. Their goal was selling something and then making money. And when it comes to the era 2.0, this communication and decision making has been a little bit more decentralized, but it's not fully decentralized. It was considered as a more reference than the ownership. And then social media platform pops up, and a little bit of decentralized interaction, because the community also evolved. When you think about like a Facebook group or like some of the YouTube channel fandom, and then like our K-pop star fandom, and the community that has like through schools and through online community, there has been a lot of like community activity has developed on the 2.0 Web 2.0 time era. So as a community 2.0, and people start thinking about business model that are custom like centric. They're like, oh, how can we actually make them happy, and how can we make them engage? But it was still limited in terms they are the one who's making money and we are the one who's buying. So it was still in the triangle kind of situation, and the stakeholder, and then the company, and then the employee, and they all like want to kind of against each other. Like the owner doesn't want to pay more, but they want to get paid more, and the customer doesn't want to pay more money, but company want them to charge more. So it's been like a triangle. And then when time of Web3 and then the community and business of 3.0, really interestingly now that the triangle has become a round, like a circle. So everything is related. So once one actor does something good, and it's automatically become good for everyone's, and including stakeholder, owners, and customer, because their incentive is totally aligned, and they are also not just like a passive receiver or buyer or consumer, but they become an owner of something, right? In that sense, I know it's like really hard to put your head around, like, oh, how does that work, and is that even possible? But only because of like the Web3 and the token economics, and there is a decentralized toolings and a new way of organizing, which is just about to arise, right? And with that, we are start to imagine that it's possible. And I think we are still in the probably Web 2.3 and heading to 2.5 now, and some are more advanced and some are not, but I think the full Web3 and to reach that potential is still not there. But anyway, let's go back to what that means. So blockchain technology and then DAO structure is definitely utilized, and then more control over decision making, and the ownership is on the people. So it's not like divided, it's more connected, and every kind of vision and incentives are aligned in that like a group of success. And then focusing on creating the value for all stakeholders, not just for the customer alone, or not just for the company alone, or stakeholder like a shareholder alone, but everything is kind of systemically aligned together. So people are trying to focus on creating the value of all. So this is quite interesting. And if we can manage to do that, and there's an even bigger question of like, how can we then even decoupling with our current system of like a fiat-based capitalism, which is very much centralized, and then a lot of our ecosystem is run by a few government, and also US government especially, and that a lot of our currencies are packed with USD, and since that's happening, we are never sovereign enough. So there is an even deeper question around that, but I think that's another conversation to have. But that's kind of what it is right now, and how the community and the web and the governance and business has evolved in the history. Yeah, so there's a few key that I want to talk about with you guys today, and is touch upon like the things that I just mentioned: a new way of governing, a new way of creating, coordinating human, which is community and DAOs, and the economies, and so on and so on. So I don't know if you guys are already exposed to DAO. But DAO is a decentralized autonomous organization, which means, code actually make everything autonomous, so we don't need humans anymore. And then with the smart contract, we can actually do better job on holding on the trust, and so on and so on. But I actually understand decentralized autonomous organization a little bit differently, because I think the humans' place is extremely important, and it's all coming from the culture, it's all coming from our thought and perceptions, and our own narrative, which is based on our value. So the new definition that I'm bringing is like DAO is a new way of organization and coordinating the human resource, and then human talent, and the resource that we have. And oftentimes people are asking like, what's the difference between community and DAO? But in my opinion, community sits in the very big umbrella, and DAO is a kind of a new way of doing community. And then also community is could be defined in the many different things. And this is another like community piece, like but people come into the community, and oftentimes they think, oh, the community that I thought was more intimate or more distance, and so there's a lot of different expectation about community. That's why the community fails. So I think we need a lot more kind of like a study and experiment around community. And I kind of define community as a community that are very like a physical base, and also very intimate, and then collective, which is like a mission and work base, and then network, which is like a loose kind of neighborhood type of thing, that and you can actually design your community, depends on your needs and the purpose, and then DAO is suitable for I think all of it in one sense. But I think we are starting from the more like a network community, and then I think it will come down smaller and smaller. And also now in the metaverse, DAO started in online, but then it will be more mixed in the collective way, and then it will ends up being in the very physical space, and it comes down to our life. Yes, and then the community, sorry, there's a little bit of so a community is basically the heart of the Web3 ecosystem. And if we really consider Web3 is not just the technology itself, but we are really designing the new system, then community and DAOs, a new way of coordinating an organization, is really, really important. And then DAO always DAO's tools and also principle, and all of that will definitely build those new narrative of community building, and it promotes transparency and inclusivity, obviously, and then more distributions of decision-making power. And there is many different tools that try to make this process easier, and all of those that you can find online. So a lot of my conversation today is something that you cannot probably find on the ChatGPT or YouTube. So it might be a little bit abstract, but bear with me and then keep follow my story, please. And I wanted to also bring some concrete example of like how the DAO can be used in the way of coordination and then organization, right? And this is one service style that I've been running for like last 3-4 years. This is basically the agency meets decentralized organization model. So this was like a group of freelancers come together and then build all this handbook, and we had a very concrete agreement of what does that mean to be in this community, how can we make decision, how we spend our money, and what is diversity means to us, and how is it like practically applied to us, and then two working together, what are the rules. So like really building a lot of rules together. It's not like done by one person or top down, people coming together to create a safe vehicle to work before they even start working, and then they start working because now we have a very safe nest and the principle people can just follow. And how is it in practical entails? So we were just professionally like a career and the task driven freelancers coming together and get a job like what we usually do. Because we were all freelancers, everybody kind of has their own pipeline. And let's say I'm a designer, but then I always need a developer to do something together, or operator, or finance, or marketing. And then we get to just work together anyway. And why not? We actually creating a vehicle that we can actually work together. And so we make more money, and we less stress, and we creating a community treasury. And then with that money that we can actually spend on our own welfare, or creating a social safety net, which we don't have because we're freelancer. So things like that happen. And then the outcome was really interesting. And this was a completely off-chain governance. So we did not use a blockchain, but this experiment was ongoing for 3 years, and everybody in that group was making more money, had more time, and had a more safety net. And then we get to build a lot of different culture around the decentralized organization and decision making. And then that worked great. And now I think we're ready to implement the on-chain governance with token voting and so on. But we use the other tool, Web 2.5 tools, to actually making decisions together, and so on, so on, so on. So when we think about DAOs and then Web3, so like always has to be token, always has to be blockchain, but you have to start from this cultural building first, and that's basically the definition for me is like decentralized autonomous organization is like individuals that are autonomous enough comes together and then coordinate their needs and their action in a decentralized way, and then it become an organization. So that's more and more accepted now in the DAO space and the Web3 space. And a lot of our people, our friends are building just tooling of like token votings or multi-sig and all of these DAO toolings now start to thinking like, actually we should have built from people's needs, not like our technology excitement. So there's like a testimonial that I'm getting. So it's quite interesting. And then second thing that I want to talk about is governance. And then when you think of governance, I mean, when I first heard of governance, it's like, what is it, something related to politics? I mean, it is in some way, but governance is basically is a decision making, and then like distributing the power, and then who we're gonna give our power to, or am I going to exercise my power? What is the power means, and how does that work? And then between those power plays and how people coordinate each other, and then actually governing something. And in Web3 and crypto sense, we're talking about decentralized governance, and that is basically technology enabling this possible. It's not, the transparency has to be guaranteed, and the important, very, very important piece of governance is basically the government or politician, all of things like related to governance when we think of it, because they are the escrow of the trust. But now we are moving that escrow of trust to the technology, to the smart contract that is actually backed by the people's words, right? We come and create a consensus together, and we make the promises and agreement together, and we implement it to this smart contract, and then the contract actually does the job. And in that sense, we can completely decentralize and then distribute our resource and the decision-making power, and that kind of help build a more democratic and inclusive society in some sense, because now we like, for example, the voting, like they cannot fake it. They have to actually escrow their trust to some trustless trust, which is blockchain or code. And in that sense, there is no abuse and things like that. And we're still exercising that actively, but this will happen, and it gotta be in that sense, like everybody can actually practice their power, understand how to play, and then get incentivized doing that. Yeah, so. And also, once the transparency is guaranteed and decentralized governance works, and people start to having trust between them, and then the decision making is become more easier. And for the governance part as well, we also need to practice, because oftentimes when we were given the power, we don't know how to exercise. And when we started this service DAO, some of the team member couldn't actually cope with like how much power they have, and because they never actually had that autonomy to exercise their power. And then being in a position with others come together to make really, really important decision for organization. So that's another piece that we also have to practice. Oh, how is yeah, so we went to the all the way end. So this is another interesting example of like how we decentralize power. And this is like a project called Impact Collective, and this is basically the capital venture capital players meeting the Web3 and the decentralized governance. Often the traditional VC, they have if they're a small fund, they have like 3 to 5 or 10 to 20 partners and associate who making decision, like what kind of startups or company getting money. But they are definitely not the domain expert, and they also have a very particular regional base, or oftentimes it's just like such a small number of people making decision, and it just can't be the best outcome. So the very brave VC in Korea called the Ventures and our service DAO and the UPNA is one of the UN agency comes together to do this experiment. Like, what if we actually give a decision-making power to the community, and then they can actually decide who gets investment, and then do due diligence and do recruiting as well, and what would be the outcome. So we did this experiment for like 2 years, from 2020 to 2021, and now in the process of completely moving this structure to DAO. But that outcome was spectacular, actually, that we led the community to decide, and we had like 1,886 community members all around from Asia Pacific, not just like Korea, but also all the way to Pakistan. I saw that there is a student from Pakistan, and from New Zealand, Australia, all of this APAC come together, and then each local ecosystem builders and then the consumers, that they kind of like promote their teams that they're supporting. And at the end, we had a token voting. So whoever gets the most vote, and we blindly invest in them and to see how they perform. And one of the Pakistan company that was called Sehat Kahani is like a telemedicine company run by two amazing women. They're both the mother and woman doctor. In Pakistan, sadly, they are the country that sits on the almost the lowest in the human development index. And they need a lot of doctor, but a lot of women getting the degree to get married, and they are not practicing. They're not practicing in the real time, and then they just didn't have enough doctors. So they were like, what if we actually let moms and women doctors practice it at home? The only reason they couldn't practice was because of the social pressure. And then a woman has to be at home and then do their things and then not doing social things, So they come up with this solution, and then it has become a thing, and the COVID happened and everything moved to telemedicine. Their company did an amazing job, and they never got any international investor, and they were really hard to get even money from local investor because they're two woman founder, and they're not exposed to enough market, but the Impact Collective community found them, and we didn't had access to them, and they found, and then they got the investment, and they are outperforming any other developed countries startup. And it is quite amazing that how this decentralized governance, and then also we incentivize with a community member that we give them a thanks token. So people who participate in the voting, participate in a startup's growth, participate in the program, gets thanks token from the team itself. So the teams are distributing the thanks token to the people, and the thanks token later will be turned into, like our part of our carry of the fund is go back to the thanks token. Go back to the thanks token holder. So they actually have a financial incentive model to help and then participating the growth of the startup. So it's quite interesting model, and we run on the blockchain, and we didn't have to tell that it's blockchain. So we used like as little as a blockchain works, but like experimenting decentralized governance and incentive model. And then so far it has been very interesting experiment. And the next one is basically the economy. And then one thing that is really, really interesting when we talk about the new future of business, it's no longer product. It's no longer, let's say a market size will affect a little bit, but I think it's actually all about community and all about storytelling. And even if you have like two same cups, people will pay more money with a more story rather than like just say made in somewhere and then no explanation. And also we have like a beautiful and amazing creative economy arise right now, and then that's all actually the community-based model. So if we can say community-based equal DAO-based in some sense in the future, I think that having the Web3 community or community using the Web3 technology and the principle of this decentralized organizing, they will become a really, really interesting business model. And then people are no longer like prioritizing a cheaper one. And I think they want to be part of something and part of this shared value, and then a part of the story of the product. And we can confidently say that it is really all about a community-based model and the narrative-driven business, which is community will be success in the future. And I think this piece is related to how the Web3 and then DAOs can make money, and then including their stakeholder, which is including the consumer, into the engagement wheel, and then actually creating the mutually benefit business model. It hasn't been done much yet, but I I'm pretty sure it will be more coming out, and it will be way more accessible than ever, because we have this token economy model, and then also technology, and also this decentralized governance of like distributing the power and the leadership. And yeah, so this is another example of utilizing this the new economy. This is like a small startup. It came out of like charity called World Vision, which is the biggest NGO in Korea, and their team raising a lot of money. They're raising a lot of money every year, but still there is a need to help more. But the pocket or the pie of raising money is not growing anymore, because people's value and people's interest has been something that is more closer to them, rather than helping kids in Africa. They're like, I want to help like single mom next door. I want to help like cats on the street. And so a lot of diverse and interest has expressed, but there's a lot of individual cannot actually help those because they don't know how. So World Vision had a thought, like actually to make the real impact, we cannot just keep asking donors to pay money alone, but they has to be part of the change, and they want their donor to be the activist. So that's how they come up with this idea of how can we do more individual and activism driven, rather than the charity and organization driven helping in the philanthropy. And the DAO idea and the technology come, and like we help them to creating this platform for people to just come and then meet other peers. Like, we meet in the DAO, you just join the Discord and you see some people that you don't know, but you start working together. It's the same thing. You join and you just speak up about your topic that you want to help and creating the value of. And then people come together and they're creating a campaign, which is like a self-DAO literally, but it call it action in that platform. And then people start contributing together, discussing together what they're going to do, and then people will get the role and then expectations and then credential for their action. So it's all become a crypto badge, and that become your identity in that group. And you can also kind of create incentive utilizing the crypto token or non-fungible token to really incentivize these people and then stay connected as a community. And then what they dream of is like, instead of now big companies or big donors going to the big organization and give chunk of money and a day spend, but they can come and then start finding very niche but very special or very theme related the causes that they want to support, and then please those individuals or this group of individual, they can please them directly. In that sense, actually there is a kind of one middleman gone, and then they can do way more interesting work together. And I think the future of charity is not like charity doing the fundraising. I think fundraising part has to kind of become more separate, because the NGO doesn't want to actually raise. They want to do the work. The raising has to be coming from somewhere else. So they can focus on their work of helping on the ground, and then creating narrative and advocating for the topics. And then fundraising can be done in this private sector with the individuals together. And then they all become also not like fighting for the small pie, but like helping each other, and then become more triangle to the round and circle kind of ecosystem. And it's also possible because of this decentralizing power and the governance, and then the tokenization, and the also simple use case about the funding, right? And then you can fund those actions on the platform, but and then that could actually translate into the token of your own community, and then you can actually follow. And they've done kind of pilot with the Korean government together to really follow through, and then put it like merging with the fiat money and then the crypto token, and to see how that actually play out. It was really hard because you have to convince and then really go through every step with the traditional players, but that's possible. So there is a lot of experiment like this happening. Simply speaking, like these kind of companies also a company, right? And they are doing this DAO and Web3 kind of businesses, but they also find their own way of making money, and they try to be more sustainable in their own. And then later, like all this platform can be tokenized or owned by community, and then the community will have like incentive to grow this together. And then because there is such a value, the community will still alive and have a longevity, and that means that their token or their value they're creating will have a really high point. And that's the very, very ideal model, the dreaming model of like how the Web3 community and DAOs and a business can actually shape. But the only way that we can know is to practice and then experiment. Yeah, so I think we've covered a lot of different elements of like community and governance in Web3, and what is the trend, or what I'm thinking, or what I see in the future that is very important. But at the end, the key success is actually all coming into the human elements. So we have to really think about not just what kind of technology that we're gonna come and bring and use it, the toolings and technologies and all the use cases really changes, depends on the context. So you have to understand what are the human layer of that. Once that you have that, and you can actually really practice, is the decentralizations really needed here? And a lot of us talking about flat and DAOs are flat, everything same, everything equal. I am not believing that. I'm calling more horizontal. So when we look at the horizontal line, it's not flat. It's always have some mountains and the deeps, and it's a different thing. And then consider this more sustainable model as like a nature ecosystem, rather than everything drawn by a ruler. It's not flat, it's horizontal. Some play bigger role, some play smaller role. But can we say like actually bees are less important than the big trees? It's not. The bees are extremely important in our ecosystem, right? Without bees, we would not have a fruit, and without fruit, and we would not have like animals have nothing to eat, and then we would not be eating whatever. And then the pollination is so important. And the trees, they have their own role of like holding soil, regenerating the soil, and holding the water, and they all have a different role. So we really have to find that autonomy piece as a human, like what are my role in the ecosystem? And it doesn't have to be always the most smartest person in the room, right? And there is always some rule that you can find, but really make sure that you cultivate the ability and capability to communicate your needs, what you want, what you don't want, and then ability to actually facing the conflict rather than I'm leaving the conflict. Oftentimes in the community, and especially as decentralized, the conflict is become a resource rather than conflict if you overcome well. So when you think of like doing the project as well, like I don't want to do these things with that person, so you're gonna leave, but like just try to go deeper, and then see where the pain is, and where that actually the emotions or that the trouble is coming from, and then try to face it, try to communicate. And each time that you do that, that there is a growth. And if you want to work in DAO, if you want to work in Web3, you have to cultivate that human essence. Otherwise, it will be extremely difficult, because people are not teaching you what to do. You have to find what you got to do, and what you want, how much you want to get paid, and how you want to roll, and then what are your beliefs. And then you join the DAO that you have a very same value and a vision, and otherwise you would not be motivated. And so there's a lot of different human elements. And then once you have that group of people that you want to work together, do things together, is a project, a DAO, a community, whatsoever, and then that then comes to the decentralized decision making. Is that there will be no person tell you what to do, so you have to to actually have a very clear vision of what you try to do, and then what you really see, that you have to able to also speak on behalf of the things that you believe. So all of that, once that's happened, then you can have a way easier decentralized journey. And so that's why it's very personal to me, and also very interesting experiment designing this new system. It's not about just designing new system and then telling others, but actually it's coming from your own practice. I hope this resonate with you guys. Yeah, so anyway, so that's the key success in the new system will be extremely depends on the human interaction and active participation. And people are not active participate because once they are not convinced to the idea. So you have to actually able to convince, able to write a proposal that people are convinced, and also participate and then enjoy the process, right? Yeah, and to enable effective community and governance in Web3, we need to focus on building strong relationship and foster trust and promoting the transparency. And once those, relationship and trust and transparency is there, it's quite easy, and you just need to keep a practice and then keep building. And there's no perfect one that I've met so far in the DAO space that are cultivating all of this. So we are all learning together. So yeah, welcome to the space. Oh yeah, so this is like another example of actually cultivating this human element. I just threw this event last week in Seoul. Basically, not just bringing people together, but also the narrative together. And a lot of our Web3 kind of narratives and stories and values that are set by West. And if we want to design the new system, that it gotta be more inclusive. And I understand with the DeFi and NFT, that a lot of technology part was led by West, and that's what they're good at. Imagine they're the big trees, but what East does, we good at long time like decentralized organizations. If you are in Korean, you will understand what is K, what is Ture. There's a lot of practices our ancestors been doing without even calling it DAO, and it has been promoted by government or promoted by individual villages, and they really was already practicing it. And then a lot of our friends from the West, they don't know, they never exposed to this kind of wisdom. So how can we bring these things together and then creating more collaborative and an inclusive narrative before we even enter the new economy or new system, right? We have to start doing the groundwork, and then this is like a part of the groundwork that we're doing. So like a wisdom meets knowledge, and then that kind of expand everybody's like a perspective, and they gather together and culturally kind of like learning about each other and communicating, and like a physical space. So there is always a duality in a Web3 space, or in general in life, and it's all about balancing. How can we bring those two together? And I'm not like opposed to having development in the technology part, but we also have to have these important cultural conversation and the human element conversation as high or as important as a technology conversation. Otherwise, I believe that Web3 would go to the dystopia. So I think it's very, very critical time. And I think it's very, very critical time that you guys are actually, experiment and the balancing that in the classes and beyond. And I just emphasize this because it's a very, very beginning of our Web3 space, and it's just starting. So you guys are all welcome, and participate, and then be active and learn, and just, take it as your own, and then just explore. I'm very excited to see actually 90, even like 60, 70 people showing up for this classes. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it as for me. I think I went a little over than what I thought that would be, but hopefully you guys enjoyed it. And then, yeah, if there is any question, let me know. Let me see. Yeah, so there's a few questions already. Maybe we can cover one by one. Amir was saying, is decentralization the ultimate solution, or would we be converging towards some form of balance between centralization? Yeah, it's a very good question. I think when your centralization works great, I don't think you need to move to decentralization. But oftentimes the centralization always has a little bit of problem when you go deep enough, either philosophically, either in a practical way. There's always, our society has built on the middleman concept, right? So middleman is the one who making money. So to just really understand the working centralization, you can build, for example, when you vote, it's not always like one person, one vote, it's consensus, right? You can actually delegate if that person really an expert on something. We cannot let everybody who has a very different, diverse background, who doesn't know anything about medical, to make decision on the very important medical decision. So in that case, you have to delegate that. And there's some sort of like centralization in my thinking. And so I think the healthy centralization and decentralization it's got to be comes together. And also like everything decentralized, I don't believe in that. So when there's elements, if you can keep the integrity of centralization and decentralization, and just keep focused on what's working rather than making everything decentralized. And also this mixer of solution is totally possible. I mean, the last few years, like, oh, everything has to be decentralized. If not, you're a scammer and all of that. I think those narrative has become more soothing, and the people start to understand actually we need some sort of like a compromise. And, when there's something pops up and always very loud, extreme voices, but now I think it's coming more understandable. So that's my answer. What do you think about City DAO? I think it's very interesting. There's a lot of experimenting going on with a localization, and then also network states. And then there's a few different players are doing different things. And also like Kevin DAO, they're doing like building this co-living, co-working spaces for like a globe nomad, and that there's just so many different intentional community also turning into DAO. So there's a lot of land-based, intention-based DAO popping up. I haven't seen anything yet that is sustainable more than 5-10 years yet. There has been the very much locally based intentional community that has been for a long time, but they're more like a hippie, like, they don't really use technology whatsoever. But I really want to see more. And I also want to challenge those DAOs that is only land-based, and what are the other incentive and outcome and the value they can create other than that there's a physical space, and that there must be something more that they can explore. So I strongly recommend to really dig that. Is there anything DAO can achieve that traditional cooperation cannot? Yeah, I think I just cover it briefly on the slides and every example that I had. And I think I kind of reasoning why they moved to the decentralized model. So I hope that answers. Can decentralization really work? Well, we'll see. And some work, some not. So we have to keep experiment. Do people like decentralization? In practical level, I don't think people like that. And it's really hard, it's painful, to go through the decentralization, even like opening your self-custodial wallet. And then it's not, I mean, we like to just give it to central exchange so they can actually manage it for us. So there should be a lot more solution that is helping. And even Vitalik was saying like decentralizing everything, that he's not huge fan of that. He's talking about like a social recovery system for key management, for example. That's a really interesting model. It's not like, oh, we cannot give it to anybody, and then you put it on your paper and then you hidden somewhere, but then you never find it. And is that really practical enough? Actually not. So what are the other things that is close enough, that is practical, but also decentralized enough to not compromise? How can we solve the scarcity problem of resourcing we have with this planet? Yeah, there is I know that you guys had a refi person coming in and share some of it, but I think it's very, very interesting topic, and especially with the planet, scarcity is in our nature kind of resources, and our developed country, to be honest, been extracting a lot from the frontier market, or like the underdeveloped country or continents, and then now they're like, I mean, we are now like just starting to develop and utilizing our natural resource, but now people are talking about climate change, so they cannot do anything with it. So they're very much frustrated. But there is a new concept called nature-backed asset, and that could be related to token, and it's really, really interesting. So how can we tokenize incentive and then give to the people who are actually preserving the nature? And also creating a new job. For example, like a me planting tree, and planting tree can be done by anyone. It doesn't have to be technologists, right? And then some kids living in the city come to our farm and then do tree planting, and then take photo and upload and get a little bit of incentive. And then who doesn't have a job, like elders who really love gardening, they can come and then keep doing the monitoring of it. And then there is a satellite company, planet.com. They taking photos of like all these areas, like every day, like so many photos of it, so they can actually identify how that area of the tree planting is growing and so on. That there is a way more sophisticated technology that I didn't know. I just find out that that's possible. And then now those industry coming together, and that they are working actively in the Web3 space. And so people are start like Ecuador, Gabon, or Costa Rica, and already experimenting with the repi protocols to design this thing. So they are, although doesn't want to cut down their trees, but they also want to make money, and they also has to be sustainable. So they are using this nature-backed asset model to create more opportunity for them. And it's like a carbon credit and all the same things. So there's a lot going on, and hopefully we can solve that scarcity by creating a new value using crypto and the blockchain. Yeah, I don't know how more time I have. Jason, just can you indicate me how?
Yeah, you can go ahead because we can finish this class by 50.
Okay, cool. So we still have a 7 minute. And yeah, blockchain as a technology was created initially as an e-cash. And why are we trying to expand it to other sector? And it sometimes feel forceful, trying to do something more than what it was meant to be. Yeah, so I think Satoshi, when he wrote the white paper, I don't, well, yeah, he definitely created as a currency. And I think that was one kind of like, kind of a projection of what he wanted to see, but it was, in my opinion, it was more than a currency. And he explained it as a Bitcoin or currency because it was the easiest concept that he can probably explain about this system. And of course, like people took it and then did it something else. And it's not just the money of value exchange, but also the network itself is creating a way more value than the exchange of money. So I think whoever want to explore and take it as they want to see and how they actually perceive, I think that's fair enough. And I think so far, like last 11 years, everything has changed a lot. And I see a lot of negative effect, but also very positive effect. So for another next 5 to 10 years, we should just be doing a lot more experiment. And I think just limiting ourselves is kind of losing for our humanity in my sense. But we have to direct our energy into the positive sector. And it's not just finance. Finance always comes with other things as well. Why do we need a finance? Because there is a relative party, relative politic, relative society, relative narrative, and there is always something. So I think digging into that like a little bit broader other than the financial tool, I think that would be very interesting for you to practice. putting in the seed raises and yeah, gotcha. I think I cover a little bit. So hopefully, Mingyu, the earlier answer of how decentralized can we go? I think that's already answered. And Sue was saying it is difficult to live in a centralized society. So why do we need decentralized society? I want to hear from her or him itself, like why, what kind of centralized society that you feel very difficult to live in. And this is a concept for centralization is difficult to irritate people. To uninterested person, Korea has at least developed IT, but is Sue still here? Do you want a voice? Yeah, I think because he mentioned the country, I want to mention a little bit about Africa, that what I've seen, actually people in Africa using crypto in a very critical way in a daily basis, because of their currency is so fluctuating and their inflation is crazy. And they like one day, like you have, let's say, a $1 for 2,000 of their own currency, and then the day after is like 1,000. It's fluctuating really a lot. So only way for them to have storing the value of their money they earn is to have it in the dollar. But the reason why that is fluctuate is that they don't have enough dollar because their currency is backed by dollar. So it's a very, very complex chain. And because they don't have enough dollar in the country, we cannot use ATM. So the way that we did it is also using Binance, and the locals using Binance P2P. That's why the peer-to-peer transaction is the highest in Africa, because people just keep buying USDC, USDT on the Binance to just store the value of their money. And a lot of these people does not have a way to make the overseas payment, so as also they don't have a bank account, they don't have things, so they cannot send money and receive. And people simply like freelancers, they find a work at the Upwork, but there's no way they can actually receive payment because they cannot open a credit card, they cannot open a PayPal, so they're getting money from crypto, and then they just exchange in the P2P Binance market, and they have so many different payout options. That's how they actually live. They pay by day, so it's quite interesting. And so those kind of decentralization, because the centralization is not working in the society, so they kind of leapfrog of the use case of crypto, and also the understanding, as they also skip just normal banking, they went straight to the mobile money. For example, Kenya, more than 70% of their GDP is transacted in M-Pesa, which is like a mobile money. So there's so many interesting cases, and I will share on the Slack the interesting overview of what's happening in Africa, that you can have a look to really understand what are the use cases and how can crypto become more adaptable there. There are a few other questions, but I believe that I probably answer a lot of it. So this is us.
Okay, thank you for sharing your experience and insight. So please give her a round of applause. Thank you for your lecture. Actually, I have a lot of questions to ask, but I will ask you in person.
Great.
Okay.
Thank you,
Thank
guys.
you.
Bye.
Have a nice dinner.